Hello everyone, welcome back and welcome to the day 3 of Framer Discovery Streams. So my name is Arjun and I've been a multidisciplinary designer and a Framer expert. So we are here looking and discovering as to what we can do with Framer and understanding how to go about it in terms of web building. So these live streams will help anybody catch up to speed in terms of how they can leverage the power of no-code tools or visual builders more appropriately, um, like Framer, and use them to build high-quality interactive sites super fast, which are also very performant. So that's the essence of what these streams are about, and let's get started. All right. So if you're seeing my screen, in the last few live streams, we have really seen an overview of Framer. You can go ahead and check back on the streams in terms of what's been discussed. So we have an overview of Framer, what are the possibilities of Framer. We have also explored how to really get started building with Framer. One, with the components that are there, preset components that are already in Framer. And the other part is where you're bringing the simple patterns and components from external libraries. So one of our own is Framer Flex, and I've also showcased one by the fellow Framer designer and Framer expert, Nabil, which is Segment UI. And that's also something that you can use to very quickly build simple standardized layouts and landing pages and websites. So that's essentially what we have covered. We've also seen how we can go beyond building beyond templates, building beyond the standard layouts and patterns. So we've started with something as simple as Matthew Trey's website, and seeing how we can replicate a layout like this, starting with simple objects like text object. And we've seen how you can continue building such kind of layouts with Melike and Diana. And there are some more sites which are more interestingly, not just in terms of the layout, but also in terms of the interactivity. They are a step above the standard layouts. So we have Moxie strategies as one of the very good examples where there's a lot of stacking behavior that you can notice as I'm scrolling through. A lot of non-standard layouts here. And especially the part where we have the services coming up and they just start stacking on top of each other. And likewise, we have non-standard layouts like Apple website, very popularly known, and how they integrate these animations. Of course, there's a lot more involved. But essentially, we can replicate a lot of these functionalities using Framer already. We have something like this, that's Runway ML, a video-based AI. And we have a section where we specifically have a tab pattern, which we'll try and replicate today. This is one of the things that most people have trouble understanding exactly how Framer helps in designing non-standard patterns or patterns which are standard but are very powerful. Usually you will not be able to build such kind of things on the get-go from any other tools, but with Framer it's possible. And we have a couple of other websites here, which is from article. Again, a grid-based layout, but not the standard one. Pretty much the entire site is like this. And we have another example here. And this is also something that we'll be looking at, especially beyond just the intro screen. You have a video playing in the background. There's a lot of layering going on here as well. And especially with the work section, we have, more importantly, the sticky scroll kind of a behavior with the projects being laid out in a layered fashion. And we have Docusign. If you open up the brand specific website for Docusign, which they have recently built, and this is built on Framer. We can skip this part. A lot of these custom animations going on, and there are a lot of scroll-based effects happening here as well. There we go. And this is one of the important sections that I'd love to cover in today's session, and seeing how we can build a simple scroll-based effect like this. So quite a few already there. And we have the late checkout website as well. It's a very, very unique website where a lot of the interactivity is based on the canvas, which is having isometric illustrations, and you can just hover, and it's very exploratory. It's a very fun website, which kind of introduces to different sections. And I've actually covered how you can build this exact kind of a layout in a separate video covered on YouTube as well. The link will be shown on the screen. With that, let's go ahead and proceed how we can replicate some of these patterns. Okay. Right, here we go. This is what we have built. Yes, in previous live stream, we just took two simple text objects and we have stacked them together. We have been introduced to many concepts as to how you can draw a frame. We started out our experience from here, a canvas page, which is a free-floating kind of a area where you can actually go ahead and iterate your designs and keep adding a lot of elements and building your designs, and you will generally not run out of space. You can keep going there. You can add more canvas pages if you want. You can segregate these things. If you are a designer coming from the world of Figma, you will find this very familiar. It's like a Figma canvas. But once you switch the design to the web pages, you will see that the marked difference here comes in terms of having default breakpoint and adding the breakpoints here. The default breakpoints that you can add are the tablet and the phone, very extreme device breakpoints. And we also have the concept of the stacking, where you will see that the content can be structured in a much more rule-driven fashion, which will make rule-driven and responsive. So which will make your site work very seamlessly across all of these devices. So we've seen that in the previous live stream. You can go ahead and catch that up. But in today's thing, we are going to take this a little forward and see we have how some references can be replicated like this. So we will get into understanding a little bit more about components. Yesterday, we have been introduced to component in the previous live stream, but in this, we will take it a bit further and understand how to connect these components together to make one big interactive section. So we can start with this. So right away, if you go ahead and see, we can build this directly on the canvas, or if you're experienced with it, you can go ahead onto the web page and start building there as well. Essentially, let's go ahead and lay out the elements. So right now I've just selected the reference, and if I just click in the empty area, Framer does a lot of these heavy lifting behind the scenes, smart things that it does. It gives you suggestions to add new canvases, ability to add, especially if you're in a component edit mode, ability to add the states, ability to add variants. All of these things are being done, and a lot of these alignment aspects and all of them are taken care of as you keep moving around the objects. So a lot more intuitive, a lot more smart. And we will begin with building this particular section. We have the top tab bar, which has all the tabs, and then a button. For now, we can skip the button because what we are more interested in is the behavior of this tab structure. which is what you can build very, very simply in Framer. So let's go ahead and make this particular elements, starting with a simple one, which is, let's begin with the text. It's much easier to begin there. So I'll just type in text to video. So let me zoom in right there. And what we have here is basically this particular label is has a background, and there are other labels which also usually have a background, and they are only revealed when you actually click on them. So we will build one small element or one small component which, when repeated, makes this whole tab structure happen. So that's a fastest way to approach anything that you have as a reference. Just identify the smallest part which is repeated and which you can tackle with. And right now, to do that, there are a couple of things that we can do. We can draw a frame around this to make for the background. And as you draw the frame, if you notice on the left-hand side layers panel, you will see that the text to video, the label, is already inserted into the frame from a layer ordering point of view. So you can collapse, close that particular group or a frame. And we can do this, or you can also do another way, right click and say add frame. Either ways, you will be able to do that. So if you add a frame, it's best to approach it that way, where you are setting the width to fit content. Basically, it fits the content to the fits the width to the content that is inside, and we have the height, which works the same way. And if you modify this text, the frame also increases and decreases in terms of the height and width. So let's see it up a little bit more closely, and we will go ahead and add a little bit of that inner spacing. So you see that the layout stack has already been added because we have started tinkering with these widths. The moment you set it to fit content, the layout comes into picture. So what was a simple frame now became a stack. So a stack is a simple logical way of structuring the content in one-dimensional fashion. So you can choose which axis you want to lay out, so horizontal or vertical. So basically, if I choose vertical, and if I just copy and paste this, you will see that the next object, the text object, is being automatically stacked and contained within this particular top level, and it kind of goes on like that. So that's just a one-dimensional stacking right there. And likewise, we can set it to horizontal for now, and the distribution is about if you have a bigger frame or a bigger stack in terms of the specific width and height, you will notice this much more easily, where you can choose where it is kind of aligned to what edge it is aligned to. And we have on the other axis, because we have chosen the horizontal, on a vertical axis also you have the flexibility to choose whether you want it to be vertically centered and things like that. So right now we don't have any other element added to this, so we'll set the gap to 0 because essentially that's what happens when you add another text object. The gap between them is something that you are seeing that you can control. You have on canvas controls as well to control this gap, and you will see this changing. But for now, we'll set the gap to 0, and we'll add a little bit of that inner spacing. So what you see as padding here, which is a terminology that we use in web building, which is nothing but an inward spacing inside this particular stack. So you can go ahead and give a regular inward spacing. So you see that all the space is added on all the sides, and you can match it very closely. Right now we are not able to see it so well, but let me add a background fill color to it. So right here I come to the styles properties, and I add a little bit of a background. I have a color picker to choose the specific color I want. So let me just put both of these things in the view. Use the color picker and pick that shade of gray. There we go. We have added this. More or less, it kind of resembles the kind of spacing that I see. Now the last part is adjusting the radius. So again, you have the control for both the inner spacing and whenever you are adding radius, where you can actually do it on an individual corner and here on the individual side edges as well. So that is there. So right now we are just setting the radius to, let us say, 80. There you go. Just a guesswork. Looks like it's working. And if you want to just go ahead and place it on top of this reference just to see if it's the right size. Looks like I hit the spot right there. Nice guess there. Okay. So let's continue with this. We will just name this as tab, and we'll continue to put these tabs in line. I can go ahead and hold Option to duplicate, or like how we have seen in the previous live stream, we can copy and paste as well. But copying and pasting, usually, if it's not a frame on a top level, if you're working inside a top level frame, then you will see that it pastes right on top. So it can get difficult in terms of pulling it out and then seeing these things. But a much better way to do that is using Option key on your keyboard or Alt key if you're on Windows. You can click and drag, and you will see the alignment controls, the smart guides basically coming into picture and helping you align things neatly. And while you are still holding Option or Alt key, you can also hover on any other elements to see the space between them as well. So this is what is there. Right now, we will just space it very close, because as you can see, even if this has a background, that kind of touches the other one as well. So we'll just replicate this a few more times. And if you want to do the same action again, you can use Command D or Control D to duplicate, and it will perform the same action again. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tabs. 6. So we can undo 1. So there we go. And basically we don't want the backgrounds on the other ones. So we'll just turn the fill to 0%. Basically we are making it fully transparent. So our opacity is 0. And now we want to stack all of these things together so that we can use it together, we can move it, we can manipulate it all at once. So instead of them being individual, and this becomes a tab switcher component properly. So right click and just say add stack. And once you add stack, by default, you will notice certain things that are happening. Framer tries to intuit it for you, but if usually it does not work well, the best way to do that is right click on it again and just say fit content. So it kind of, like how I have mentioned it, it's like a magnet. It just sticks to the content that is inside. And as the content inside it expands or contracts, the overall top level stack will change its dimensions. So that's what fit means. And the moment we are using fill, it means that we are taking advantage of the outer container. So we'll get there. So right now this part is done, and we just have to replace the text. Let us say image to video, video to video, text to image, image to image, and the final one is motion brush. So we have the tab component ready, but not fully. So if you notice, there is a bit of an outline to this whole thing. So there's a little bit of that inward spacing here as well. So the more you think about it in terms of the web concepts, in terms of padding, in terms of inner spacing and things like that, the way you build your components and interfaces or web pages will become a lot more easier, because in a free floating design tools, we usually mock this up in multiple different ways. But the right way to build it is, especially using these web terminologies, will yield you the most efficient method. So here, while we have this stacking happening, we can set the gap to 0, because we don't want any gap between them. And what else we can do? We can add an outline. So that's the border that you see. and we can set the border to the same color of this one. So we can go into the color picker and just pick this color, set the border to, okay, so that's 1 pixel border that is there. So if I just click outside, you will see this is happening, but there's no rounding. So let's set that up by using the radius, and the same, if we give the same radius value, you will see that it kind of snugly hugs all of these things, but we want a little bit more spacing inside. So we will add a little bit of that padding as well, probably 8. There we go. Probably a little bit more smaller, 4, or somewhere in between. The best guess wins, that's all. And now we have this one, and we just have to put together this part. So if you actually look at the website itself, this is kind of a video that's playing up. So what we will do right now is we can either insert a video right from here. If you have a video that you want to bring in, you can actually add this video right here. You can size it up, very free flowing manner. So when you're building out elements like this, it's best to use the free canvas to build out roughly wherever you want to position the element, roughly giving the dimensions and things like that. But once you're sure about it, you want to take it further, you want to implement it very well and make it responsive, then you start stacking things up. So that's where, so your responsiveness starts with stacks, essentially. So now we have these two things, and we have a little bit of that corner radius going on here as well. So let's bring that. And with preset components like this, which you have gotten from the insert panel, you will see that there are a lot of customization options with these components. And here we have the radius part, which we can give a small radius of 8 pixel, should be done. And you can also choose a host of other things. You can upload your video. You can put a URL for a video that's out there somewhere posted. You can set the controls. You can say if it plays by default, or set the cover, all of these things, where the video should start, what is the start time, all of these things. So right now we'll just leave it as it is, but we'll proceed with building this part. So we will just stack this together. Right click again, add stack, and right click, fit content for now. And to bring this, we can bring this to the center. And if you have any of these dotted lines coming up, you'll know that that's kind of pinning it to that edge, so that that value remains constant when you resize the screen. But if you center it, you will see that all the pinning values are going well. You can also add the pinning value here, or you can just click on the center, click on it again to just remove all the pin values. So right now we are on the absolute positioning, but let's fix the inside and then we can fix the outside as well. But if you want to go in a more professional route, it's best to build your layout outside in. So we can go ahead, set the layout for this. And again, we are choosing top to bottom, and we want to distribute it to center, basically, and align it to the center again on a horizontal axis. And we have the gap, which we can set it to 0 for now, and padding to 0. Because anyway it is centered, we don't have to add the space on the sides manually. So that's where it is. And within this, we have this set to auto fit, which means if you, according to the content inside, this entire stack will change. So now we'll just name these layers so it's easy for us to identify. We can say this is, let us say, just a generic name, features, and this is tab control, tab switching, and video. And now you will notice that there's a little bit of that space between the stack and the video where it ends. This is because right now we have drawn this, kind of adjusted this video manually, so it has given absolute specific widths. So the fixed widths, in other words. So this is something that we can change to be more responsive. So the height is something that we can actually fix. If you want to fix an aspect ratio, here's one little tip. You can set the width to fill, and the height will automatically, sorry about that. You can set the fill, and when you lock the proportion, you'll notice that, let's say right now we are just setting it at 540, and you can lock this aspect ratio. And the moment you change this, let us say to 480, you will notice that the aspect ratio remains the same when it gets resized. So that's a little tip there automatically. So yeah. So we have it ready here, and we can actually take this to the web page to build out the full set of interaction. So because it's much easier to build components onto the web page, where you can link it very easily. So now, right now what I've done is I've just copied this entire thing and pasted it on the home web page. And here, as you can see in the layers panel, there is a overall desktop stack. Within that, there is a stack that we have copied, which is, we just can call this as intro section. Within that, we have features, let us say. So now we can go ahead and make this into a component, which is interactive. So to do that, right click, create component, and name it as it is. You can change the name if you want. Right now, when you create the component, you get into the component edit mode. You can always go back to the page, double click, get into the component edit mode. So now we can add the necessary variants to this whole thing. And as you can see, you will see the background being selected here, but in the component edit mode, you're not able to see the background because it's very closely matches the edit mode canvas background, basically. So we'll keep it as it is for now, and we'll call this as tab 1 by default. And in a component edit mode, as you can see, on a horizontal axis, you can add variations of this particular tab switcher. And on the vertical axis, you can add states. So interactive states, basically your hover state, your press state, and things like that. So now what we will do is just add variants. And if you add a variant, automatically it takes a copy of that, so you can go ahead and make more edits. And this works the same way basically your breakpoints work. So if you add breakpoints, in the previous live stream we have seen, if you add a tablet breakpoint, naturally whatever the things that you have set on the primary breakpoint here, as you notice in the layers panel, this becomes your primary, and all the primary breakpoint related changes will be made across the other resolutions as well, until or unless you overwrite them again. So here, let me say I just want to overwrite this. Okay, let's get into those parts later, but let's build this component first. We have the text to video selected. This is the tab 2. And this is image to video being selected. So what we'll do is we'll just remove the fill here, make it 0, and we'll make the fill appear here. So as you can see, this is the variant by itself. Has a very slight, I'm not sure if you're able to see it on video, but I'm keeping it as it is. So, or we can play with it, we can change it, why not? Why should we stick with the same style? So let's say, for example, there we go. So something like this we can set, and as you see, I can set the same color for others. I can do bulk edits, select on the layers, set this and set it to 0% opacity. And here, because we have kind of overridden it, we can reset the override, and the color that we have given comes back, and we can set it to 100. Right, likewise, we can do the tab 3 as well, and so on. But right now, let's just simulate with just 3 tabs for now. And because we've modified it, we can reset this override and go on to the 3rd tab. And this one, we can set this to 100%. So we have the variations ready. And now it's time to connect them. So the way to connect them is if you just You can make any frame that you have. So one of the important things to use frames to build all of this is also because it gives you an ability to make them interactive. So right here on the top, we have something called interactions. So let me bring it closer. You can add the interaction either by using this particular button right here. You can just use that, use your other hand to zoom out and connect to a screen on the canvas. So this is more like an on canvas control. And the moment you connect it, it gives you options to customize the interaction. Right now we just want it on tap and there's no delay. Once they tap, it should automatically switch. So that's what it is. And in other ways, for the other things also, you can give the interactions right here. You don't have to give the interactions on every variant because as I have mentioned, if you do any changes on the primary variant, all those changes will apply to the other variants as well until or unless you override. So now we'll do the same for the second one as well. So this time we'll use this one. And once you click on the interactions on the right hand side properties panel, you can say new transition. So there are transitions and events basically. Events is something that we can look at it later, but right now we are just looking into the transition. So on tap, zero delay, it's just transition once, and we can select tab 2 right from here. So this is a very manual way of doing it. In case it's very difficult for you to do it on canvas, you can do that. And the third one, I'm just connecting it to tab 3. And as you notice, if I go to tab 2 and select this one, basically this has to go to tab 1. Not sure why it is selected that. And then we can take a look at this. We can turn off the interactions whenever they are on that particular tab. Sorry, this has to be tab 2 minus. This does not even need interaction. What am I thinking? Okay. We have the third one set to tab 3. Tab 1 goes to tab 1. We'll just check on the other ones as well. So this, again, we can reset overrides and okay. So we have given override here, so it's just applying for that. So whenever you give an override, it just applies to that particular variant and it is not backwards compatible like that. So we'll just give an interaction, or we just connect it using this. There we go. And the second tab is connected anyway. Third tab need not have any interaction. Let's just preview this. You can actually preview the interaction right here in the component edit mode even before you go into the web page. But if you want to see it in context, you can do so on the web page. But there we go. So for us to understand whether the video is switching or not, we can actually replace this with something else. Let us say we are just uploading it. Okay, so let me do this. Instead of using a video here, for now, we can just use an image component. It just makes it easy for this use case. I can go into the insert and image, or I can go into the layout and add the image right here. So it adds the image. I'll give the same properties basically 540 and set to fill. And for the image, I'll just go into the fill and I'll use the Unsplash extension to choose a random image for now. And I'll give the radius 8. And for the other variant, I'm just going to change these images and so that it just simulates that very well. Just another image right here. And now we can go ahead and test it. There we go. Ideally, there should be no delay, but it's like my computer is acting up. But anyway, If we see it in context of the web page, you will notice that it's a very seamless way of switching between these things. And you can extend this across the other tabs as well. Now we have a completely custom interaction that is built out of a component. This is a very simple way to build custom interactions and components. I hope you have understood. You can, of course, adjust this, make this responsive for the tablet size and for the mobile size as well. But for this live stream, you may not have the time to make all the nitty-gritty details. I'd love to actually use this time to get on to the next one, where we have some of these references. So here as well, we can actually start building this, and let's do the same steps. Very simple stuff. We'll just use the text work, and I'll just size the text to something around, let us say 400. Somewhere around that. 440. There we go. And we can adjust a lot of these things here in terms of exactly what is the height of this text line that you want, what is the spacing between these letters. If you want to adjust, you can adjust in pixels, something like that. All right, so now we have the first element here, and we have a layering going on here. That's something that we have to take note of. But for this to work, what we will do is we can actually just add a frame, or actually add a stack and set it to fit content for now, or we can bring it to the center and basically, okay, so let me do that on the top level as well. Add the layout and set the gap to 0, probably just say center. And actually this one we can now set it to fill, so it takes advantage of the space that is available. So for the fill property to be active, you have to ensure that the parent container is also a stack. And with the height as well, we can just set it to fill for now, or we can give a specific height of, let us say, 900 for now, or 800. And we can just say, instead of start, instead of center, we'll say start, because we want to add further objects here. And let's say it's a page or main. I'll just name these things intro, and we will just do copy and paste this. And basically what we want to do is get onto the main container, and right now you are only seeing it up to here because we have the fixed height. So instead we'll just use this to fit content. So naturally it expands to fit all the content that is inside. And with the duplicated one, what I'll do is I'll just remove this part. Instead, I'll use the image that I have used. So let me go back here. I'll just reuse these elements. I'm copying it from here, back here into the canvas, and I'll just paste it. And I can actually size this that simulates this one. So more specific size, let's say 800. 24. So I'm just hitting the standard sizes there, that's all. Okay, so we have something around 600, something like that. So now the idea is to make this work in such a way that if you look at the website, as you scroll, the work as a title sticks to the top, and the rest of the items just kind of get overlaid. A very layered technique. So this we can simulate it very easily once you know exactly how the elements are supposed to scroll. So if you notice in the web page, as you scroll, until all the images or all the project cards here are complete, the word in the background stays the same. So that's a very critical detail to notice, because if you are just using individual sections like this, layering like that and making this sticky will only work until this particular area. But if you want to retain any element, you want it to sticky all through the scroll, then what you can do is you can actually copy this particular title and put it in the frame where all of these things are actually there. So let me actually turn the stack into, let us say, projects, and I'll set it to vertical and from the start, and the gap is, let us say, 80 for now, and I want this title to come up, and you can either move it on the canvas or you can use your arrow keys to change the positions or swap them. And now I just want to set this entire project thing also to, let's say, fit content, and I'll actually remove this intro on the top, and we just have the projects going on. And with this we can actually add more like this, and we can change the images just to simulate it, just selecting some other random images. There we go. All right, so now here there's a little bit of that spacing related aspect that's missing, so we can easily add that by adding the padding. This time I'm adding only padding on the top, let me say 200, and we have 200 on the bottom as well. Now we have the page. Let's make this interactive. So once you build the layout, it's best to actually make any of these interactions rather than making it on canvas, which is still possible, but you will see that some of the interactions are limited on the canvas page. So it's best to actually do these things where the web page caters to it, because this is where we are checking. So we'll add a new web page, and we'll just paste it here and set this desktop to fit content again, and using the main. And here what we'll do is we'll just adjust this text to fit within the screen very well, 400 or 380, somewhere around that. And we'll adjust these images also to 440, something like that. So it looks well in this particular resolution. Now we'll just take the text, and as you notice on the top, you might have observed that there are multiple ways other than absolute and relative, which we have seen in terms of position, and you have something else called sticky. What sticky does is it kind of ensures that that position as you scroll sticks to the top, and you can set the spacing from the top exactly where it should start sticking. And right now I'm just leaving this as, let us say, 200 for now. So from the top we have the 200, and we want it to be sticking exactly where it is. And with that, the other important critical detail is whenever you want sticky positioning to work, you have to go back onto all of these stacks all the way up to the parent level. You have to ensure that there is something called the overflow. So what the overflow property does is basically if you put any of the content inside, and anything that goes beyond the boundary, you will notice that, especially when you have fixed widths happening or fixed heights happening, you will notice that that kind of gets hidden. And that's what it is kind of doing, where by default for all of these stacks that you add, the visibility is set to hidden, but you have to go ahead and change this to visible for your sticky thing to work. This is just the way the web works basically, and hence we have to take care of that. So ensure that how many other layers you have nested in, you have to ensure that all those layers are having the visibility overflow set to visible all the way to the top. Overflow set to visible. Now we can go ahead and test it, and you will notice that that's sticking very well, but there's one more thing that we are missing. This is not layering on the top, rather it is layering on the bottom, so it's coming below. So to correct that, what we can do is, whenever you have sticky positioning set, or you're using, let's say, absolute positioning and things like that, one of the detail that will be added to your properties panel is your z-index. Z-index is nothing but whenever we are building web pages, we are doing it in a two-dimensional plane, but z-index tells how the elements are layering on top of each other, which goes on the Z axis. So that's the one. You can go from 1 to 10 as a numeric and even the decimal points in between. And you should be able to get a lot of range there to play with in terms of the elements, number of elements that you have. So here, the title is set to z index 1. And we want to, especially it's best to leave the z index 0 to the background. And any element that you have on top of that, you can start from the 1. And let us say you don't have to give all of these incremental things because we only want layering to happen between the title and the rest of the images. So I'll just select the rest of the images and let us say go to the styles and add the z index. So because these are set to relative, you will see that z index is not added, so you have to manually add it. Now we'll just set it to 2. So all of these have 2. Now we can go ahead and test it and see that this is working. There we go. Awesome. So that's a very simple way to make scroll effects happen, especially the scrolling and sticking, all of that to happen. Now we'll combine this with another important aspect called effects. And for that, we have another example here. I know that we are reaching the end of the live stream, but let's just actually finish this, because this kind of adds to your understanding of how far you can take your custom interactions and effects. And what we'll do here is just build out this layout very simply. We'll select this, add a simple frame, set the background to black. Right now I have used a shortcut to trigger the color picker, but otherwise you can go into the fill, choose the color picker and do that. And let's say, just add, oops, can't see this. So I'll just set the color to something else. Probably I'll just use the color picker. The shortcut is Ctrl+C. It could be Option+C on those who are on Windows. I'm not sure. A. And just set this to something very big as a size. So, and we'll just duplicate this and place this on the bottom. 4, 6, and we'll also actually extend this up to D, just so that we have an ability. And if you notice the web page here on the Docusign website, as you scroll, the top one moves onto the left and the bottom one moves onto the right. And that's a very specific scroll-based interaction. We are kind of mimicking that. So what we'll do here is we'll just set both of these things to stack very quickly. And we don't want any spacing. And of course, the stack is top to bottom, so vertical. No spacing. And even if you don't want the space even between this, you will notice that you can fine-tune this even more by setting the line height on the text tiers. So right now it is set to 100, so I can just go set it to 80 and goes to further down. So there we go. So now we can just set this to the center, align this. We are just using the alignment controls, or you can actually drag it manually as well. So now we have this stack, and what we want to add is another one, which is the central title. So you can go ahead and let me reduce the size to something around 60, and I just set the letter spacing to 0, probably set to medium, and set to white. But this one is kind of following the stacking order. One of the things that we can do to bring back the floating kind of a mechanism where we are specifying the position is to set this from relative to absolute. Because the moment we say relative, it kind of follows the rules of the stack. But if you want to get it back to a free positioning kind of a thing, you can set it to absolute. And what you can do is center this and ensure that the text is also aligned to the center, so that when you edit it, it kind of goes from the center and outputs. Where character counts. So there we go. We have most of the important details there. You can just change this font if you want to. So my favorite from the free fonts is Victory. You can set this. There you go. So right now, the text here has an outline, as you can see, but there is no fill. And that is something that we currently may not be able to simulate it in Framer, but maybe in the future they will bring it. So let's take it actually to the web page and see how we can build this interaction. We'll add another page and paste it right here. But to simulate this, we need another section. So let me actually build a follow-up section. Go back to layers. We'll add another stack. And we'll set the top level also to having the stack layout. Start, cap is 0. And set this to fit content. And actually you'll see the duplicate being here. But here, I want to actually remove these things and probably just have this set to relative. And I can actually specify a height, let us say 800 for now, and actually give this a background of white. And just set the text to black for now. And there is another kind of a sentence that's being added if you see the actual web page. So I'm just kind of simulating it with another, what do you say, another section. We'll just set this to fill. And we have it. So we'll say this is section 2. We'll just say this is section 1. So we'll just take this whole thing onto the page that we have. And right here, we'll just set the desktop to fit content. Again, no gap. This is the main one. All right. So now the idea is to give interaction to these two elements depending on scroll. And for that, what we can do here is we can go ahead, either add the effects in bulk, where we can select multiple layers and then add the effects, but we'll just see one by one for now. So when you select any object on the canvas, you can add effects to any object. On the right hand side properties panel, you open up the effect. So we choose here, there are multiple things. You can add appear effects, hover effects, press, and all of that. If you don't want to make it into a component, you can just add all of these basic effects that are usually done in component level, but you can bring it out. You don't want to make it a component. And you can even add effects like loop. We can see some of these examples where I'll be sharing a couple of them in the next few live streams. But for now, we can just do the scroll transform. So there's scroll animation, scroll speed, and scroll transform. There are differences between them, especially if you want the animation to continue with the next section, and you don't want the animation to stop when you set the triggers. Then you can just go ahead and choose the scroll transform. So with the scroll transform, we have a couple of options here to set. You have a starting position. Right now, we can just set the opacity to 1 and scale also to 1. And basically, this is where it's starting. We can say it starts from where I have positioned it. And you can actually, let us say, okay, so we can set this to left because we want the A to be visible first. So I went back into the section and I've just set align to the left so that we can add the proper effects. So we want it to start here, and then we want it to move on the left hand side and this to move to the right hand side. So that's where it is. So with this too, we'll set an offset. You can do all the other rotation properties and all, but for now we'll just set it to, let us say, minus 500, 800 maybe, or 1000. How much ever you want to move based on scroll, you can set that. And we can choose the trigger as well. So right now we can use the trigger as on scroll because that's where we want it. But you have other ways of choosing triggers, which we can probably look at it in other streams, where there is layer in view. Basically, when this particular layer comes into view, that's when the animation kicks in. And we have something called section in view. So section in view means you have to have any of these things. You can add a section ID. On the right hand side properties panel, if you just scroll down, right here you have something called scroll section, and you can add an ID here so that it identifies that as a trigger, and you can just name it and things like that. But for this particular animation, we don't need all of that. We just need it to be on scroll, a free floating way, and we don't want it to be triggered, especially for any of these sections. And you can also choose how smoothly you want this animation to happen. So for now, we are just setting this to, let us say, 200 as stiffness, and let us say damping as, let us say 60, and mass is 0.5. Basically, how light you want these objects to become, and damping takes care of how smooth it actually works. So there's a little bit of a preview here, you can see. And if I just increase this damping to 120, we'll see how slowly it starts and stops. And right now I can just set it to 60 back, and the stiffness, if I just set it to, let us say, 600. So the best way to check is with the extremes. So just the animation becomes much stiffer. So right now I'll just leave it at 216.5. And we'll just test it and see how it is working. Here we go. Now as we scroll, this is kind of moving to the left, and this is exactly what we want. And we don't want that scroll to stop as when this section finishes. So it kind of continues until it reaches that minus 1000 pixel point that we have. Now we can just copy this, and let us say we paste it onto the next layer. We can do so by right-clicking on the layer here, or right-clicking on the layer on the canvas, or even right-clicking on the properties panel, wherever you want. And once you hit paste, it kind of pastes the same transform properties, but this time you can adjust this exactly where you want it to start. So probably this particular thing starts from an offset of, let's say, 100. Just starts there somewhere. I see that this offset is there when you begin the animation on the site. And then we can set this to a positive value because we want it to move to the right and not to the left. So on the horizontal axis. So we don't want anything to be done vertically. So we are just leaving it right there. And the transition properties, we are keeping it as it is. So with this, we can go ahead and test how it is working. There we go. As smooth as it can get. And this can become a very performant site as well when you add these effects. Don't take my simulation to be the thing, because this particular system has been running with a lot of live streaming thing going on. But yeah, there we go. We have kind of finished quite a few things. I hope in this stream you have understood how you can get some simple effects going on. There are many more examples that I'd love to share, but probably we'll see how we can do that. With that, we'll kind of take a wrap for these tasks. You have this stream again available on YouTube and other platforms as well to go back and refer. So if you have any questions, we can take it. And thank you again, folks, for joining in and spending your time on this live stream. I really hope it has given you enough insight into how you can pick up a tool like this and empower yourself. So any questions, feel free to ask. And those of you who want to actually go on a much better pace and build a very solid foundation in terms of your understanding of web and framework, then I have a workshop that's running up in June 8th and 9th. That you will see the code right there on the screen. You can go ahead and scan the code, and you will get onto the page to see all the details of the workshop. Basically, this workshop is for those who want to take their skills onto a professional level. So you don't have to stay at a novice level. There's a lot more being shared in the workshop. Very structured session and very practically oriented. A lot more practice tasks are being given to you, where you can level up your skills one by one and basically you will cover all the important concepts in one weekend in just 6 hours, and you can go ahead and do some practice tasks to level up. That's a simple format, and I hope this will help you. There are some hellos and highs I might have missed. Adarsh and Abhijit, thank you so much for joining in. I see that. Jatin, hello, hello. Good to see you all here. All right, if there are no more questions, we can just call it a day, and I'll see you in the next live stream covering a few more aspects which kind of builds on your understanding of Framer and take it forward. Thank you so much for joining in.